Boom, everybody, welcome tonight back to the... Oh, Jesus, I haven't unmuted my own... So, always production problems at the start, of course we have. Everybody, thank you very much for coming back. Tonight we have been joined by UnHoly Sara, a channel that I have been subscribed to for a while, but it just goes to show if you don't subscribe and hit the bell, you will miss content, you will miss what's going on. So I thought we would reach out to Sara, find out a wee bit more, and yeah, Sara, your link's in the description, but if you want to know everybody who you are and where they can find you.
Well, the link to my YouTube, like you just said, is in the description. I'm also on Twitter at Sarah Unholy. And if you follow me on Instagram, you can see my pets.
Pets? Cats or dogs?
Both.
Oh, good. Yes, as long well.
I have 2 cats and a dog.
I have 1 dog, but yeah. Dogs, I think, are better than cats, but we'll not get into that at the start. We'll not fall out as soon as we start.
I like both. Oh, I just screwed up my thing. I like both cats and dogs, honestly. I don't think I even have a preference. Except my dog doesn't leave big old scratches on my fingers and arms and everything.
If I can just interrupt ever so slightly, MOMMA ATHEIST has just turned up in the chat. That's the other half of me, my wonderful girlfriend. She is not feeling very well at the minute. She had some surgery last week. But for everybody that did donate to the Get Well Soon Fund, yeah, we broke over $200, and we ordered all the stuff the other day, so there is a wee bit of a wait on the sex toys. Unfortunately, she's not going to get them to the middle of September, but she got her cuddly teddy bear already. She's happy with that. But everybody, thank you very much for donating to that, and lots of love for Amanda in the chat. Sir, usually what I do is I would always start with the first question. What brought you to YouTube? Is there... what made you want to stand up and use your voice, so to speak?
First of all, watching a lot of atheist YouTubers, which still don't even know why YouTube recommended that to me in the first place. I was just watching Let's Plays and gamers, and then it was like, hey, watch Genetically Modified Skeptic. And then I went down that rabbit hole and was watching YouTube for that kind of YouTube for a year before I was starting to think there were things that could be said that aren't being said, or ways that things could be said that might come across better to people. Mm-hmm. And I started wondering, well, could I do that? Could I feel that whole and I didn't think anything would come of it, honestly. I started out with the mentality of I'd be happy if I passed 20 subscribers. I'd be thrilled if I hit 20 subscribers at some point. And then all of a sudden Apologia decided to give me a Twitter shout out, and now here I am.
Well, it just goes to show, doesn't it? Every wee bit helps, and that's what we hope to do here as well, is with the community. You get to know other people, and use your connections, and you get to. You've recently, or was it not too long ago, you had Prophet of Zod on your channel as well?
Yes, yeah, we've had. We did a collab back in November, and then I just had him on to talk on a live stream about the movie God's Not Dead, because I watched it for the first time finally.
Yeah, them sort of. I seen Hannah and Jake do them. They were good. I thoroughly enjoyed their commentary on it, but the movies themselves are... yeah, what can you say about that? Well, I wanted to ask, when you came across Genetically Modified Skeptic and you went down that rabbit hole, were you already... I assume you're an atheist, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was already an atheist. I became an atheist when I was 19, and I found Genetically Modified Skeptic when I was... 21, 22. I'm 25 now.
What was it, your denomination beforehand? Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Muslim, whatever?
Somewhere between Protestant and non-denominational.
What was it that, if you don't mind talking about it, what was it that, not to steal Neil 604's thunder, but touch on your deconversion?
Well, I've already been on Neil's channel, so you don't have to worry about...
Oh, perfect, grand, we're sorted.
Dating a Mormon was actually what did it for me. I was a Christian, he was a Mormon, and there was a bit of tension of, well, whose religion is right? And so I was studying his religion. I was studying with the missionaries, and even got to the point where they asked me to be baptized, and I was, but they brought up a lot of questions, well, they didn't mean to bring up a lot of questions, but a lot of things they said raised flags with me. And it started being that it wasn't just things about Mormonism, but things about Christianity in general that started sounding not right. And when I kept asking questions. I was trying to understand. It's not like I wanted to deconvert or anything. No one ever does. But eventually they got to the point where they're like, okay, so do you want to get baptized? And I was like, wait, what? That's everything? That's your whole spiel? That's how you get people in? And broke it for me. Oh, hi, Julie. Julie just dropped in. But I think the question that was like the biggest push was I asked them, if God doesn't give you more than you can handle, which is something they had just said, then how do you explain suicide? And they stopped for a minute and they thought about it, and one of them said, well, God doesn't give those people more than they can handle. They just choose not to handle it. And that was so, like, obviously it wasn't a satisfactory answer. And then the fact that it was so disrespectful to suicide victims and survivors and their families, I think that was the thing that really pushed me over the edge.
Well, I think that's what we find is when we generally talk to most people about what their ideas on religion and what we should take, you find that teach a lot of it. It's the reason that we have so many evangelicals and things like that is because they don't get this outside knowledge. If you hadn't have dated that Mormon, you wouldn't have had that touch with another religion. You know, when we go to school over here in the UK, we have RE classes, and in Northern Ireland particularly, you're taught a wee bit of Catholicism and a wee bit of Protestantism because that's the two denominations in school, but that's all you're taught. You know, it's real, it's there, it's that, and you just accept it. You know, oh, there's a problem with this passage. Well, this particular dogmatic religion has fixed it with this explanation. But when you go and look at other ones like Mormonism and things like that, you do see different explanations and different reasoning, and it causes you to ask these different questions. That's why I do what I do, is so when we have Christians here, not to convert anyone, but to leave people asking themselves questions.
Yeah, because just accepting things just because they're told to you is not enough. Like, if you start questioning your religion and you spend some time thinking about it and stuff, and you come back to still thinking, oh, I still think my religion's true. Well, at least you thought about it. Like, that's fine if you're just thinking beyond just, oh, this is what I was told and this is what I believe. Or, like, worse, the people who will say that, like, if you ask them, why do you believe what you believe? And they'll say, oh, I believe it because that's how I was raised. That drives me nuts, because you don't have to believe everything you were taught as a kid. You were also taught that Santa Claus comes and gives you presents on Christmas and the Tooth Fairy takes your teeth away. You don't still believe that. No. And kids are very, very susceptible. I mentioned this last week, and I'll probably get more stick back for it, but you know, I have a dog. He's a cross between a pit bull and a Jack Russell. He's a bit of a tank of a fucking dog, so he is. And he jumped up and very excitable last week when we were getting ready to go for a walk, seeing the lead as dogs do. And he jumped at my 3-year-old and knocked her absolutely flying, you know, and scraped her on the chest and everything with his paws. She was quite upset. She wasn't, you know, not going to bleed to death or anything, but I reached out and I smacked him on the nose. You don't do that, you know, don't jump up on her. I wanted to control him, did the walk and all the rest of it. And then later on, he crawled over sneakily when I wasn't watching and she was eating her dinner, and he was underneath her, and she just reached out and hit him on the nose because she'd seen me do it. And I had to then stop and say to her, look, he didn't do anything bad there. You only, you know, it was obviously a bad example. I'm aware of that, but it's how susceptible kids are and how they just take things. Well, mummy and daddy said it, so it must be true. What we want to try and do is not deconvert people, but if anything, to try and get them to think more critically and more logically. Yeah, it's because, like, they take advantage of that. People trying to pull kids into whatever religious beliefs. I remember being taught in, like, middle school that I should go and, like, proselytize at school. And that's them taking advantage of my trust in the youth pastor to try and take advantage of other kids' trust in me as, like, their friend. And that's just kind of screwed up. It bugs me. Childhood indoctrination and stuff. I have this Bible right here. Because that's what my next video is about. And it's these cutesy little pictures. Yeah. and it's directed at kids, and it's supposed to be so pure and so sweet and so innocent, but it's so awful, and there's so much wrong with it.
If you haven't seen Ricky Gervais does stand up with Noah's Ark, he takes Noah's Ark, a child's book, and has it up on the projector, and he goes through it from an atheist's point of view. It's very funny. Ricky Gervais. Yeah, very outspoken. He's outspoken in nearly every TV show he does about his atheism and distaste for God. But it is good that we have, I wouldn't go so far as saying a celebrity, but somebody who can normalise it. Okay, in certain things he does get, he's maybe not the best advocate, but I do like his approach on certain things. I like the way he speaks his mind, and fuck everybody.
And that's another problem we have is needing to normalize atheism, because unfortunately to a lot of people we're just kind of like, not even directly the villains. I don't think people really think about it a whole lot, but a lot of people, if you ask them what makes a good person, one of the things that they'll say is like they have to be a godly person, or they have to believe in Jesus or something.
Yeah.
Like there was just that, what was it, the video or something that Will Smith did, where he didn't mean to say you're a bad person if you don't believe in God, but he kind of indirectly reinforced that idea. So I don't think he had any ill intent or anything, but that's just how heavily ingrained that idea is within society.
No, sorry. It is a problem when you have things like that do get reinforced, because you know we want to normalize the whole situation. The problem I see that when it comes to, especially more so on the left, is we have an awful lot of infighting and things like that. Like if I said to you, what is normalization of X topic? You know, what is normalization of atheism? What is normalization of LGBTQ rights? You know, and things like that. And to me, it's the ability to make fun of everybody. You know, go South Park, go Ricky Gervais. That's the ability, to, in my opinion, is to get to the point where we don't see it. Like if I want to insult someone, I'm going to insult them because of who they are. It doesn't matter to me if they're LGBTQ. If they're being a cunt, I'm going to call you a cunt. But if they come back at me and then go, you can't say that because of this, that, you know, the right, I feel, lines up an awful lot more. We're more independent. We speak our own minds, and it causes problems.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess.
Obviously, I would consider yourself, you're not a Republican, are you? No.
No. I would not consider myself a Republican.
Do you have any political, like what is it you're trying to push on the channel? You know, do you trying to push mainly atheism with the UnHoly Sara? Do you have a political idea that you want to push, or LGBTQ? I notice you have the trans flag on your drink. Or is there a goal in particular that you want to drive the channel towards?
I think it's mostly atheism, but I want to also be able to talk about other things and things I'm passionate about, and one of those things would be like LGBT rights. So I have, you noticed the flag on my water bottle. And I did LGBT themed videos in June for Pride Month, and sometimes I talk about some political things. I very often don't feel like I'm informed enough or understand things well enough to talk about politics too in depth, but I posted a short video when they took Title 10 funding, I think it was Title 10 funding away from Planned Parenthood. I was furious, and I still am, because that funding is the only way I've been able to get birth control in my adult life. And frankly, I don't know when hopefully things are better for me financially when my current long-term one runs out. But people see abortion and they're like, or they see Planned Parenthood and they think abortion, they're like, oh, let's take that away. And aside from the fact that that's problematic because abortion is healthcare, there's also the fact that Planned Parenthood does 1,000,001 other things. Abortion is like this tiny, tiny little percentage of what they do. And they take care of people's health and reproductive health in so many different ways. And people are just like, oh, well, I don't believe in this one tiny part of what they do, so screw all the good they do in the world. I'm going to just try and defund them and do bad to them. But
I would recommend, if you're going to do any content on that or any videos on that, very well informed and someone who was there on the front lines with Planned Parenthood. And Susan from Divine Disbelief, Dave, do your mod thing. He'll pop a link in the chat and probably in the private chat for you afterwards. But definitely reach out to her. She did work with Planned Parenthood and stuff. Being here in Northern Ireland, we've only recently, in this last year, 2 years, I think it has been, have legalised abortion. And I've had arguments with guys who went with the pickets and the signs and everything to the actual opening of the abortion clinic. It's, it wasn't a fine. It was very difficult here at the time because it was legal in England. So if you did want to have an abortion, you could, being in Northern Ireland and a UK citizen, just go on over to England and, you know, pay for it to get it done or whatever the rate. The problem with that is it then breaks the barriers, you know, and it shows, well, only the rich can then get abortions. Then we have the statistics getting skewed, poor people having more kids, and it's very difficult over here. Like, Northern Ireland is, I wouldn't go so far as saying fundamentalist or anything like that, but we have the DUP, the people in charge are very fundamentalist. They're very Bible believing, as we call them, Bible bashers.
That's not ideal. That's a lot of what it is with abortion too, is that it's the rich are always going to have access to it, like especially the most like elite millionaires and stuff. But the rich are always going to have access to abortion, even if it becomes illegal. But the more restrictions they put on it, the less access the poor have. And that perpetuates the cycle of poverty, because then you have more kids than you can afford, and you can't pull yourself out, and then your kids end up in poverty, and it perpetuates that cycle, and the poor are easier to control. And I swear, if that's not at least part of the motivation, then I don't even know. But
yeah, well,
I volunteered.
No, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say about Planned Parenthood, I volunteered there for a little bit. The local volunteer coordinator keeps leaving. Like, we're on the third one in the last year. And to be totally honest, I haven't gotten back to her because I want to see if she's going to stay or if she's just going to leave in a couple of months. So hopefully soon I'll be back to it.
Yeah, well, you see, that just comes to it, as you pointed out, in your adult life. You know, the way it is in America, the medical system, the way your system is set up, the only access to birth control that you have is Planned Parenthood. Over here, again, with the NHS and being in the UK, you go to your doctor, you know, the first thing they'll probably throw at you is the pill. You know, from a woman's point of view, the first thing they'll throw at you is the pill. And then after that, I think the next thing they usually go for or recommend is the implant. And only then, if there's problems, you know, maybe go down the route of other things. But this is all free. This is just appointments and waiting 2 weeks to go to the doctors. It's a basic right. You know, it's, well, maybe not a basic right, but it's, you know, you should have the choice. We should definitely have the choice.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it's not even just about the birth control part of it. When I got on birth control, I wasn't sexually active. I was looking to control really, really painful periods. And then I did have to go down that path of, oh, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, until I finally got to one that worked. But for a lot of people, it is about controlling their hormones, their periods. There's a lot of reasons to be on birth control, and people just think, conservative people just think, oh, it's just so that they can go and be slutty. And first of all, there's nothing wrong with being slutty. Let adults live their lives, but also it's about way more than that.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Dave's quiz, which would probably be 7 o'clock in the morning for you, yeah, it's very crude. Everybody loves sex. There's nothing wrong with enjoying, you know, it's a basic human right. And again, bringing it back to the whole Christianity, abstinence, that's it. Purity culture, abstinence, these ideas don't work. Christianity as a basic right, something I've mentioned before, is if they can drum into children the fact that they can control or try and control a basic human drive to have sex and be physical with people, if you can learn to teach them to control that, you've got them. You know, you can control them, and that's what religion is about. And the idea of abstinence at the end generally doesn't work. Look at the statistics for the especially in America, the Christian states and things like that. There's more abortions. There's more underage pregnancy because they make it taboo. Education, it always boils down, in my opinion, to education is key.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. I do want to say real quick, in regards to everyone likes sex, I have been made more aware recently of visibility problems for people who are asexual. So technically, not everyone enjoys sex, but still what you say is totally valid. Teaching people to control what is a very natural thing. And a lot of the times they can't. Most of the time they can't. People are being taught that not only should they not have sex, but they shouldn't masturbate. And sometimes it goes as extreme as you shouldn't have sexual desires for anyone except for the person you're already married to. And that's just not realistic for most people. Like, people like sex, like you said.
Yeah. and worrying about things like that, it's better to be honest, and it's better... Mm-hmm. To find that out about yourself, and if not being honest with your partner, to at least be honest with yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I'm only allowed to have missionary. I'm not allowed to watch porn, and we can only do it this one time and in this one way, and that's it. As I mentioned earlier with the Get Well wish list that we bought for Amanda, there was ball gags and whips and that thing. The first thing I think that was bought was a set of handcuffs for your legs and arms. And I'm looking forward to when she gets over here. Very much so. Fighting against your basic human rights is just not worth it. Or your basic human needs and what you do. It doesn't work. The idea of making it taboo, as I mentioned earlier, I think also drives people towards it. Generally, when you make things taboo, you want them more just for the sake of wondering what it is.
Mm-hmm. Especially with something like that where you're going to want it anyway. Like, you're not going to make people not want sex. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, as much as we all sit here and say it's wonderful and fantastic and all the rest of it, it's very rare that you would sit and turn to someone and say, well, losing your virginity, wonderful experience. You get it the first time, you're like, it was taboo, now we got it. It gets better. It definitely gets better. It's not going to be... when you make something taboo and you eventually get it, it's never as good as what you expect it to be.
That's true. Oh God, I've heard so many horror stories. My first time certainly wasn't good. But it also causes those education problems you were talking about where so many people are like, oh, well, if we teach our kids about safe sex, then they're going to be having sex. It's like, no, Karen, if we teach your kids about safe sex, they're going to have safe sex. They're going to have sex either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. It's about education. It all boils down to education. Did you go to a Christian school or were you secularly? No, you were. No homeschooling or anything crazy like that.
What was that?
No homeschooling or anything crazy like that.
No. And I don't think my dad would have allowed it. My mom was Christian, but my dad's never been religious. So I went to a fairly progressive school, but even still, sex education wasn't exactly the best. It was better than what a lot of people get, but we need to just, in general, work on sex ed, I think, in this country. But luckily I at least had something.
Taking, the sex ed out of it and taking the logical and critical thinking out of it, because these are things that we want to add to the education system. Is there any problems that you see in the education system in America? And if you don't mind me asking you, you're obviously younger than me. I'm fucking 37. I haven't been in any education in a while. It would be closer to your opinion to what's been out there at the minute. But do you see any problems other than what we have mentioned? Something that we maybe need to take away from the education system?
I think we need to, and this is going to be just my country again because I haven't studied anywhere else. I'm actually looking into studying in another country for my master's, but I think a big problem we have right now is letting some kids get a better, the different areas getting better educations than other areas. The nice school I went to in Colorado was mostly in a rich area. There was one trailer park in that area that happened to be where I lived in because we weren't exactly wealthy, but the area was nice, so the taxes went into it, and I got a decent education. But coming here, I gotta watch what you say. But coming here, and first of all, the gaps and things that my boyfriend doesn't know, and the things that I saw when I was working in the public schools, they just let kids fall behind just because of where they happen to live and where they happen to be born, when we could be evening things out a lot better. I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but we shouldn't just be letting kids get shit education just because of where they happen to be born.
Well, you see, that it boils down to, again, society and sociology, and the way that the money does get funded. It does get ignored in lower places, because the worse you do, the less you qualify for. The less you qualify for, it's not like, you know, you're qualifying for less than, you're obviously qualifying for less than everyone else, but it goes down every year, and it just perpetuates, you know, the whole situation. I can't remember, I think it was a basketball player. It's going to, somebody in the chat will know. And he, when he was successful, then went back to the community that he was from and built a school and funded that school. That's, you know, what we need to be doing is things like that. You know, a lot of people, there's an awful lot of money in the world that could be spread around an awful lot differently, especially in America, but that's a stream on its own. But I can't remember who that guy was, but that's the sort of thing. We need to show kids the drive, especially if the situation is getting perpetuated. They're going to look around and see everything getting worse. They're not going to see anybody, you know, from a higher point of stance, like a government stance, or anybody around them except maybe their parents wanting them to do better. Whose parents doesn't want their kids to do better? So it goes unnoticed by the kids. Especially when they're young, you need to give them drive, you need to give them motivation. And LeBron James, thank you very much, Kevin. LeBron James threw a lot of money back into his community. I find that if they just sit around and watch the situation get worse, you're going to just sit down and accept it. And it needs a bit of a kick. People need to be more. Teachers do not get paid enough. They do not give enough credit. And I think teachers aren't also given enough freedom, which maybe could sting me in the arse if you end up with a fucking religious school. But in the secular schools, I don't think the teachers are given enough freedom to teach a child a different way. You know, back in the day, in the way the school system was created, in the technological, when all the factories and everything going up in the early 1900s, you know, it was sit down, learn something in school, you go to a factory, it's repetitive, but society isn't like that now. The information is already there in your hand from the age of maybe 10 and 11. You have access to all the information in the world. We need to start teaching kids to sift through the information, to see what's real, to learn the difference between clickbait and education, to learn the difference between someone who has deserved their point of authority by going and spending 12 years in education, by going and putting the time in, rather than, you know, farting on YouTube and ending up with 100,000 subscribers and it turns out they're a flat earther. You know, they don't deserve the authority that is given to them.
Yeah, just like teaching kids how to find what's actually good sources and what's not, and teaching the kids to think critically. And I think a lot of this, what we're teaching kids, how we're teaching kids, I think a lot of the problems in the state I live in could be solved if we were doing a better job at that within like a generation. Because we're just, God, there's so many really stupid adults. And that's a really mean way to say it, but like,
oh, no.
It drives me nuts.
It really is. I think it was actually Kevin H in the chat who has made the joke once or twice. You know, it's not that we have a problem with stupid people. We just should take all the safety signs away and just let them sort themselves out.
But you see, then you have people like me. I am like way too empathetic to let something like that happen. I think we just need to fix the problem from the roots. And we are going to end up with a lot of people lost because we're not going to go back and fix what's already wrong with like the way we taught the kids of the past. We're only going to fix what's being taught to the kids of the future and current kids and stuff. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I'm sorry. Oh
no, you're making complete sense. No, I totally understand and get where you're coming from, because like you ask any kid now in school, you know, and if just for rounding numbers up and making everything very, very simple, you've 1,000 kids in the school. And you ask every kid, do they like school. You'll maybe, if you're lucky, get 100 to 200 kids that'll say they like school. And the reason that they'll probably like school, half of them is because they're popular and their parents are rich and they can afford that. And the other half that's genuinely loving school is because of the education. They have a goal, they have a drive, and they have something that they want to work towards. What most kids, when they want to go to school now, is, you know, again, I don't talk to a lot of kids in the street, I'm not a weirdo, but they just want to get out, they want to get a job, they want to get money. The goal is to make money. The goal is not to be educated. The goal is to be able to survive. And again, with society, it's very, very difficult. With America, you have no social net whatsoever. It's a fucking hard situation. It's a difficult situation to talk about.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of like nuance and complexity and stuff too that I don't understand, but I definitely know that we're failing our kids and something has to change. One thing, that idiot who's in charge of education right now, but Betsy DeVoe?
Yeah.
Oh no, she needs...
Yeah, private schools are fantastic. Woohoo! Yeah. You know, I mentioned I'm here in Northern Ireland, and it was on my mind. My wee girl's 3 in February past. She'll be going into school, you know, this September coming. And where she lives over here in Northern Ireland, it's very segregated. We still segregate our children by religion and sometimes gender, which is fantastic, you know. And considering that her mother wanted her to go through the same more society things, you know, she wanted her to be christened, she wanted her to have the confirmation, and when you boil down to it, she's agreed it's more for the social interaction of getting the family together more than it is I love God. But for them things to happen in the Catholic Church, the birth certificate must say Catholic. So my wee girl is on the birth certificate as a Catholic, so she can be christened in a Catholic church and things like that. Now, personally, I was raised a Protestant, not that it matters. But the problem in that then raises whenever we were going to the prospect of sending her to whatever school. There's more Catholic schools in the area than she is in, than there is secular. There's one secular and I think 3 or 4 Catholic. The problem with that is obviously a Protestant child can't go to a Catholic school. So the Protestant kids all get sort of preference, if you know what I mean, for the secular school. So I had a lot of worrying that my wee girl would be bumped down because of just one thing on a birth certificate, because there's more availability for her than there is for another. Now, we did find out that she has been accepted into the secular school, which is fantastic. You know, I'm very happy about that. And it also transitions into a high school. There's a primary school department, and then there's a high school department, which is great, because if she went down the Catholic route, when you go to high school, they segregate again by boys and girls, making again the whole... let's not have sex, but put you in different schools. It's worse. So I'm very happy about that. But now I'm rambling.
Well, that's a lot of stuff I did not know about the school system you got there. That's interesting.
The secular schools are also run by the government, and the Catholic schools are run by the Catholic Church. Oof. So yeah, that's why I definitely didn't want her going to a Catholic school. But again, I'm rambling, and yeah, I just love my daughter. I talk about her all the time. Everybody knows that.
I imagine I would do the same if I had a kid. Yeah, I don't love the idea of religious schools at all. I don't like that it separates kids out from people who might be thinking differently than them. I don't like that it's teaching things a lot of the times that aren't necessarily accurate scientifically and whatnot. I have a couple videos on my channel actually about religious schools, and that was one of the ones Prophet Zod did with me. We talked about religious schools because he ran one.
To address something actually in the chat from Pomo Dorino, he says writing the religion of a baby on a birth certificate sums up the whole problem.
It really does.
The city that she was actually born in is known as Londonderry/Derry/Legendary, depending on who you are and what your religion is in this country. If you're a Protestant, you refer to it as Londonderry. If you're a Catholic, you refer to it as Derry. And if you just don't give a fuck, some of us make a joke and call it Legendary to try and be up the middle and not do anything. The government itself calls it Londonderry, and not only did they fill in Catholic in her birth certificate, they went up 2 lines and changed city of birth from Londonderry, which is the automatic computer formatted one in, to Derry. Because she was then classified as a Catholic, they wanted to have the Catholic name of the town on the birth certificate.
None of it makes any sense, because a baby can't be Catholic or Protestant. They're just a baby. They don't have religious beliefs.
Mainly in this country, it doesn't boil down to religious beliefs. Mainly in this country, it boils down to cultural. More so, I would play Gaelic than I would play football. That's what matters when you're a Catholic and Protestant. Not really what God you believe, because they don't really... it's not what we fight over what church we go to. It's fighting over territory and other things. And it's a lot more cultural here than it would be religious. It's not, they're not fighting over the religious beliefs. They're fighting over who runs the country. The division is more that way. Oh, and just as I start slobbering, my mother has turned up in the chat. Hello, pork granny. Hello. It's a very complicated situation over here, Sarah. It is. Yeah. They have forced the government to be one man in charge or one woman in charge or whatever. Must be Protestant, and the other one who is the deputy must be Catholic or Protestant. And they alternate as depending on what way the vote goes. And they did that so that they could be, an agreement. The 2 people in charge are from both sides, so that when we come to something, we've pleased both people. The problem is they don't agree on a goddamn fucking thing, and haven't for fucking 20 years, and we've only recently got the government back again. We had no government for 3 years because they couldn't agree on anything. It's
wow.
It's insane over here. America panicked because they had no government for like a week. We'd none for like 3 years.
Wow. So is it worse over there with the government and everything than it is over here?
It's more annoying. It's not as entertaining as America.
Might be entertaining from the outside. It's terrifying from the inside.
It's a sitcom from out here. I look at it and see at it as a sitcom. If you could round Donald Trump and the government that you have at the minute, can you be as close as to say what state you're in?
I'm in Idaho.
You're in Idaho. What's it like in Idaho? Is it bad? Is it Republican? Is it Democrat? Is it split?
It's very conservative here.
It's very conservative there. Well, describing your government there in maybe 5 or 6 words or one paragraph, what is it like there at the time? Right now, like.
Everyone supports Trump. And a lot of racism and sexism and homophobia.
So it's better to walk out wearing a red hat than it is to have a trans flag.
Yeah, but I have a pride flag on my car dash, and I haven't had any problems, so I guess it could be worse.
Not to steal any thunder from Mama Atheist, but she's in Georgia, and when she originally moved there from where she moved before, she tried to set up an atheist group, and she was followed home.
Ooh.
America is insane. And I don't know. Again, it boils down to education. I just think the whole idea that education.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also tried to start an atheist group, by the way, but only one person showed up, and then it just kind of fell through.
It's easier to start a YouTube channel.
Someone said only the mentally ill support Trump, and I have to disagree with that, because in my head there's two kinds of people who support Trump. And first of all, mental illness is...
I think that's a derogatory term.
Yeah.
It's same as by saying a Christian, you can have very well educated Christians. Not everybody in the science community is a secularist. Some of them just compartmentalize. They have their beliefs and then they have evidence. And it's an insult.
Yeah. It does sound kind of insulting, and as someone with mental illness who definitely does not support Trump. But the kind of the two kinds of people I think who support Trump would be people who are legitimately that hateful and that cruel that they would support somebody who's done all these horrible things and said all these horrible things. But then there's also the people who are that ignorant and they're just not paying attention, or they're just doing whatever apologetics they can to vote Republican. And so those are kinds of the two categories. Because there was also a thing going around on TikTok not long ago that was saying, oh, what was it? Donald Trump is a white supremacist, and if you vote for him again, you're a white supremacist. And I agree that Donald Trump is a white supremacist, but I don't like that whole, it's kind of like black and white thinking of, if you vote for him, you're a white supremacist. You don't know the person's reasonings for voting for him. Maybe they're just, like, stupid, honestly. Or maybe they're not paying very much attention, or maybe they've been kind of tricked in some way. You don't necessarily know that they're, like, hateful, and that's why they're voting.
Yeah, but no, there's an awful lot to go into it. Yeah, it's a very one wide brush sort of approach, and I don't like that. You know, I've slobbered on about this before. When I originally, I'll do it quick, when I came to the community, I was math magic pagan because I couldn't find a box that picked, you know, a box that fitted me. And I don't like being a box. I don't like being put in a pigeonhole. It makes you easier to shoot. You know, it's because you have to align to a certain line of beliefs, because you've done this, that, and the other. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that a lot of people in America don't vote because of, I always get this wrong. Is it a one reason voter? You know, they agree that he says no to abortion, so they're going to vote for him and let him.
Oh, yeah. I think one issue or something.
One issue voter. Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, there's a lot of one issue voting that does go on the Republican side. And that's personally for me, that is a big brush statement. And I think that's a fair brush statement to say from his demographic. But that's based on, you know, looking at statistics and stuff. Saying that everybody that votes for Donald Trump is stupid. They all have their reasons, you know. Some of them voted, I find a lot of them voted for change in the original vote. They wanted something different and they didn't want Hillary. She was one of the worst examples of the continuation of what could have went on. So they wanted change, and he played the populist vote. He was smart in what he did. He wanted to become popular to help promote his business, and he became popular enough to become president.
Yeah, I think... Oh God, I was going to say something. What was I going to say? So sorry. I have the worst memory. One of the things I was just thinking, though, was back to when I was... Oh, no, I remembered it, so I'm not going to say that. But... Oh my God, it's gone again.
I'm not going to interrupt you and ruin it. Keep going.
Oh! Everyone who votes for Trump has different reasonings, but they're all voting against people like me who are LGBT, people of color, people, like, there's so many groups that Trump hurts. So while you may have reasons that you think are good for voting for Trump, you are voting in a way that is actively hurting so many different marginalized groups. And I just don't think that's justifiable. So I get that there's different reasons and stuff. I don't want to paint it with the broad brush, but I do still think that it's just not worth it. It's just too harmful.
In saying that, though, even the fact that, you know, from the statement that you make that, you know, person X votes for Trump means that they are voting against people in LGBTQ, they're voting against this, that, and the other.
Whether they mean to or not.
Yeah, whether they mean to or not. Some of them are that silly that they even vote against themselves. You know, they vote against things that don't benefit themselves, that actually even work against themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, because the education's not there, because they're not well informed, because what Trump just does is he stands up at the front and he shouts and he admits these things, and we don't have the daily questions anymore. We don't have the White House questions, you know, because there's a back and forth there. What you have with Trump is, even though he's won, he still does go out and do campaign rallies. He's been in office for 4 years and he forgot to stop doing campaign rallies. He likes to do it because there's no feedback. He can just reinforce this idea, this narrative that he has.
Mm-hmm. I'm terrified he's going to win again. Absolutely terrified. But I'm also planning on trying to leave the country because I don't believe in running away from your problems, and I don't believe in like leaving just because you don't like it instead of like staying and trying to fix it. But at this point, I really don't feel very safe in this country. So I'm working on looking into. The only thing I can think of that would make another country let me move there is school. So I'm looking into different schools and stuff, mostly in Canada. Well,
not that I'm going to say that, obviously if you change countries, you're running away from your problems. I wouldn't go so far as saying that. It's you do what's best for your education. You obviously do what's best for your safety, and you want to be able to walk to the shops and not get bullied, not get picked on, not get screamed at.
Shot.
It's a basic human right to just walk about. And now I've lost my trail of thought because I can't. No, yes, now I've got it back. The idea that we're trying to do here from a wider point of view, and I'm not sure if you know, but we have an awful lot of people in the chat tonight that do produce content. We have people like Junk Shop, we have people like Dave. Doorknob Head produces wonderful live chats. He's great in the live chat. We'll give him that. Julie LeVoice does Wine and Reason, and me, Julie, Manda, and Junk Shop are both couples. We have both similar sort of backgrounds about how we get together, and we want to start doing more couple streams and just normalizing what we do. People of EastEnders and stuff and things like that, and Christianity story. Come listen to us, watch us. We have a community here, and we're hoping to set the foundation down on the internet. What we can do is, if we make the community big enough that we can connect all them dots across the world, and as much as we love doing what we're doing here, and as much as we're trying our best to do what we can do, we're just dickheads on the internet spouting shite. What we need to do is get enough people and grow the community big enough that you can drive 30 mile and meet someone, that person can drive 30 mile and meet someone, that we can grow across the world, and that we can grow across the communities in actual real life. We can have the power and the normalization behind us to make change, to change votes, to just have, to not jump into office and say, right, we're getting this, we're separating church and state, we're getting rid of all the statues, this, that, and the other, but to just make it okay for someone to stand up and go, no, I'm not a Christian. Small steps. We're not looking to take over. We're just looking to be equal. And as what we have here online, we can just hope to get together and grow as a community outside of it. I'm cheating ever so slightly because I'm trying to persuade Manda to move from America to here, but that's for my own personal benefit.
Big move though.
So we have been coming up on the hour. Is there anything you would like to add, sir? Is there anything I have missed? Have you a message that you want to get out there? Something that you want to say? Something that you want to spread?
I guess just that, because I feel like this goes with a lot of what we've said, that it is okay to just be us, and to believe how we're believing, and that it's good to be critical, and that we really need to work on how we're educating kids, but we also need to remember that we need to work on how we ourselves are educating ourselves. Like, I go to a crummy little community college. I need to actually fact check the textbooks and stuff sometimes. Like, sometimes you gotta go that far,
Yeah, keep educating yourselves. If you don't know anything, go find someone that does. And if there's not...
Never stop educating yourself. You will never know everything. Sorry, I just cut you off.
No, you're totally right. You're just a continuation of what I'm saying. You will not know everything. Just keep asking questions. That's what we want to do. We have these conversations so that when you leave, you have questions. When you go away from this, go to your friends who didn't watch it and ask them the same questions you heard here. Sit for half an hour, talk about it. People don't debate anymore, Rome and Great Greek and all that there. They used to sit around and just discuss things. And I think that's definitely something that we've lost. People accept things too easy. They accept what they're told. They accept what they're taught.
And they accept things, and then they'll view it as disrespectful to question things. And it's not disrespectful to question somebody's religion as long as you do it respectfully, as long as you're not like going up to them like, haha, you're so stupid, you believe that. You don't do that, but to be like, oh, that sounds a little off because of this, that shouldn't be disrespectful, as long as you're being respectful of the person and everything.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with disrespecting an idea, or maybe not disrespecting an idea, but having no respect for an idea. But don't disrespect the person for that. You have no idea why they're there. You have no idea why they believe it. You know, they could have been abducted by aliens when they were 3 and have something downloaded into their brain. You never know these things. You know, give them the benefit of the doubt at least once. I have mentioned to Sarah about an after party. We do have some amount of time for her, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes or something like that. So if there's anybody that would like to jump in, if we don't get the numbers, we won't do it, you know. She's already bored talking to me enough. So if anybody wants if anybody wants to join the after party, what I will do is I will we'll be lazy. We'll just pop it in the chat. Yous are all nice people. I will say, Pork Granny, you're not allowed to click that link because you'll just come in and shout at me. Yeah, mothers usually shout about something. She always shouts at me. It's my mother's thing. She likes to keep me in line, you know. Strong women and all that. So, the link is in the chat. If anybody wants to join that. Hit the bell on the channel, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. We will be back in possibly 10-15 minutes. I think Julie's going to jump in. So, yeah, Sarah's link is in the chat, or Sarah's link is in the description. Check her out. I definitely will be watching more of her stuff. Make sure to remember to hit that bell. And, yeah, I just can't say enough to everybody that's turned up. Ox and Critical and my mother and Brian, and just, yeah, at the end of the day, if you didn't come and watch, there would be no point in me doing this. I'd just be talking to myself. So on that, we will oink and we will out.